Hi, welcome to the next video in this series of Theory of Teaching Methodology, where I present my approach towards teaching BJJ. And now finally the time has come where I am going to show how I implement the rules and all the things, the theories that I talked about in the past videos of how one should teach any subject in my curriculum. Again, the most important part is having a goal and setting a goal and making a plan that is actually helping you to gear everything towards that goal. Otherwise, you will just end up somewhere. Yes, people will learn something along the way. People who are talented and have a high fighting IQ, they will probably learn anyways, no matter the methodology and the structure. But for average Joes and Janes, it will be quite difficult to follow. And that's why I'm going to present how I structure it to make it accessible to more people. In general, as I've talked about in my learning objective videos, there are 4 things that you should focus on while teaching: the actual grappling skills and the knowledge that people need to develop. Then the physical abilities, it's a sport, so that plays a role. And for their personal progress, they should learn something about learning and how they can use different methods to learn. And this is the curriculum that should make this possible. It looks like a lot, but in general, there are just 4 things that I kind of cycle through. For me, there is guard, then there are control positions, there is stand-up, and then there are submissions. There are many things in between, but those are the 4 things that I think, or that I teach my students, that they should have in mind when we approach a certain topic. For example, guard, there we use passing as one sequence of maybe somewhere, passing is probably somewhere around 4 to 8 weeks. When we talk about guard retention, I would also use somewhere around 4 weeks probably. Always keep in mind that I have think about my club, where I have about 3 lessons per week of 90 minutes that I can cover these topics in. If you have more time, like every night, then you are going to go through these much quicker maybe. Then guard sweeps, then we have sweep prevention, and then we have submissions from guard. Then we have control positions, where we have to survive when we are on bottom. We need some defensive things. In top, we have to consolidate the position and control the position, and we need to learn about attacking from the bottom as well as from the top. This can be transitions into better positions, or also submissions. Then we have stand-up, where people need to learn about guard pulling, about throwing and making takedowns, so attacking, how to prevent this from happening, so defenses, and also the counter offense. That's something important as well. And there's a lot of overlap between stand-up and guard game. And in the end, there are submissions. And there we have again the survival, so surviving late escapes of submissions, and also how we apply the submissions and set up these submissions. In general, I try to start with guard, for example. Then after several weeks of focusing on guard passing, I move on to a control position. Maybe when we worked on guard passing and we actually managed to pass the guard into side control, then the logical next step would be working on side control, and then maybe side control top or bottom, depending on what we haven't done lately. Then moving on to some stand-up or some in detail and in-depth look at certain submissions or escapes of submissions. And then again, moving back to guard, control position. Sometimes I leave out the stand-up and the submissions as, or I keep those phases rather short. It's more like a mental break between thinking about being in top and bottom all the time. And when you then have something like stand-up, it's a bit different, different context. But there are some principles that are the same for guard and control position as they are also in stand-up, which you can then show people. And on the other hand, we have submissions. That's what people are there for. They want to survive and defend themselves, yes, but in the end, Mike wants to submit Sebastian, and that's what they are there for. Maybe you have some competitors, then it's a bit different, but for average Joes and Janes, they just want to have fun submitting each other, and so that's quite important. And it's also important that they learn how to escape the submissions and be safe in submissions. So that's why I sometimes focus on certain submissions, also to use them and to show how you can transition between submissions or use submissions to set up sweeps, escapes, other submissions, transitions to better positions, and things like that. So they are somewhat supplementary parts of this curriculum. And I guess that guard and control positions is the bread and butter. And then I sprinkle some stand-up and submissions on top of that. That's for the regular classes. And when I go through this, I would cycle through this like guard passing, then control position survival, like turtle, panda, running man, all that stuff. Then maybe some takedown, single leg takedown for a couple of sessions. Then go back to guard. Then we would have guard retention. Then in control positions, maybe next there would be submissions from a certain position or transitioning between certain positions, so that we would go through this again and again and again. And this takes time, right? Because we would go through different different parts of guard, different parts of the control position, stand-ups, and so on and so forth. And we also have to develop some physical abilities and learning skills along the way. And so this will take some time. You will start at the bottom and then you will go through this over and over again. And I did the maths, and it's somewhere around 1.5 years that it takes to go through this cycle once. And when you then add in a couple more submissions here and there that you focus on, you get roughly 2 years of work when you have about 2 to 3 sessions per week. And that's basically what the time frame that you need to become a blue belt in general, somewhere around 2 years. So if you have a firm understanding, or if you've been through this all these positions, you have probably acquired the knowledge and the skill to become a blue belt, because the concepts, I teach the concepts of passing also when I teach retention, and I also teach the concepts of sweeping also when I teach stand-up and throws and takedowns, as they are quite similar. So the concepts are repeated more often or more frequently. And although the positions change, but the concepts stay the same. It doesn't matter if I have in control position turtle and I teach them to close the knee elbow space and to become a ball basically, or if I teach them to do that when I teach guard retention, or if I do that by showing other trenches, as Preet calls these, from which you can fight. So you go through these, you will teach different positions, and even when I talk about side control, for example, of course there will be some transitions into mount. There will be some transitions into knee on belly or taking the back from side control. There will also be some, or I will also from time to time address that people will try to re-guard or to do some kind of reversal and or try to submit from the bottom, right? So there is a lot of overlap, and that's why I think that is okay to go through this just once, because you will need all the different bits and pieces in all the parts, but you will focus on each of these parts of my curriculum for an extended period of time to dive a little bit more deeply into that topic and into that area. But you will get to know these things from time to time, even though we do not talk about them in depth in other places as well. Yep. And now that I've presented to you what my curriculum looks like, I will make another video where I show how I use this to make one training block or training cycle for the first one will be on guard retention, how I set up guard retention, especially this one will be with a focus on posting and framing to stop the guard pass from happening. And then I will pick out some training sessions for different phases of the introductory phase, the developmental phase, and the testing phase when we go through this training block, as I explained in my other videos about learning and objectives, and also about the progression in teaching. So, see you next time.